Today on Psycast, we're reflecting on a question that follows many of us quietly through life. What does it really take to get what you want? This episode is presented in podcast format with subtitles for ease of listening and understanding. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at your life and thought, I know what I want, I just don't know how to get there? Maybe it's a dream that's been with you for years. A career, a relationship, a sense of peace, or maybe just a version of yourself you've always wanted to meet. And despite your efforts, it still feels just out of reach. Like walking toward the horizon, always close, never quite there. That frustration, it's heavy and it's real. The world is full of voices saying, work harder, think positive, manifest it, or just be patient. But what if it's not about any of that? What if the real path begins not by chasing more, but by becoming more? Rohn once said, if you want more, you have to become more. Not in a self-punishing way, not because you're not enough, but because life doesn't respond to what we wish for. It responds to who we are. That sentence stayed with me because it shifts everything. It means your job isn't to control outcomes. Your job is to evolve into the kind of person for whom those outcomes become natural. And that's hard, but it's also liberating because it puts the power back in your hands. When I first heard that idea, it almost felt unfair. Why should I have to be more to deserve love or success or peace? But then I realized it's not about deserving in a moral sense. It's about resonance. Life tends to echo who we are, not just what we do, but the energy, clarity, and character we bring to the table. Think of it like this. If you're constantly waiting for the world to give you confidence, you'll stay anxious. But if you slowly build that confidence from within, through choices, actions, and growth, the world begins to treat you differently. It's not magic, it's alignment. And maybe no one told you this before, but getting what you want isn't about luck or being the loudest in the room. It's about inner work, about asking what kind of person would already have what I'm looking for. And then, step by step, becoming that person. Not perfectly, not overnight, but intentionally. There's something incredibly hopeful in that, because it means the future isn't locked behind a gatekeeper. It's waiting for a version of you to arrive, one you can begin shaping today. Most of us don't get stuck because we're lazy or unwilling. We get stuck because deep down, we're afraid that we're not enough. And so, we spend years trying to prove we are, instead of actually becoming more of who we truly are. We chase success like a badge that will finally validate our worth. We want relationships to complete us because we don't feel whole. We ask for opportunities to show up before we've done the slow, invisible work of preparing ourselves to receive them. And that fear, it becomes a filter. It colors how we see the world, how we act, and how we respond to setbacks. It's subtle but powerful. We say we want more, but then avoid the discomfort of growth. We say we're ready, but keep waiting for the perfect moment to start. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's what often happens. We call it bad luck, or timing, or circumstances. But often, it's our unexamined beliefs quietly keeping us in the same place. The belief that we're not lovable unless we achieve something great. The belief that we can't handle failure, so we don't really try. The belief that if it hasn't happened yet, it probably never will. These beliefs are not our fault, but they are our responsibility. Because no matter how much we want something, we'll sabotage it if we believe we're not ready for it. So, becoming more isn't just about gaining skills or discipline. It's about healing the parts of us that believe we don't deserve what we're reaching for. Imagine someone who wants a loving, secure relationship, but deep down feels unworthy of being chosen. They might unconsciously push people away or choose partners who confirm their fear. Not because they're broken, but because they haven't yet become the person who can receive and hold what they truly want. That's where the real work is. Not in hustling harder, but in becoming someone whose inner world is aligned with the life they're asking for. And that takes time. It takes self-awareness. It takes kindness toward yourself on the days you fall short. Because you will fall short. We all do. But every time you catch yourself choosing differently, choosing to respond instead of react, to speak honestly instead of pleasing, to rest instead of overcompensate, you're building something. Something that can't be rushed, but also can't be taken away. That's what Jim Rohn meant. Success isn't something you pursue. It's something you attract by the person you become. And becoming that person is the most honest work you'll ever do. But where do we begin? The beginning is rarely loud. It's not a grand declaration or a life overhaul overnight. It's quiet, almost imperceptible. It begins with a question: who am I becoming? Not what am I achieving? Not how am I performing? But who am I becoming? Slowly, daily, in the choices no one sees. Real change often starts with one of two things: pain or longing. Sometimes both. Pain wakes us up. Longing pulls us forward. And somewhere between those two forces, we begin to see that something in us has to shift, not just so we can reach a goal, but so we can live differently. We begin with awareness, with noticing the patterns we've been repeating, the stories we keep telling ourselves, the people we become in moments of stress or fear. That kind of honesty isn't easy, but it's where power lives. You can't become more if you're still hiding from yourself. I remember hearing someone say, every next level of your life will demand a next level version of you. And at first, that felt exhausting, like a never-ending ladder. But over time, I understood it's not about constant striving. It's about deepening, becoming more whole, more integrated, more real. So we start with small, sacred shifts. Waking up a little earlier to read something that feeds us. Saying no when we usually say yes out of guilt. Reaching out when we'd rather isolate. Telling the truth, even when it shakes a relationship. These are not performance acts. These are the building blocks of becoming. James Clear, in his work on habits, talks about identity-based change. He says, every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. That thought is powerful and humbling because it means every moment counts, not in a perfectionist way, but in a way that reminds you that even when the world isn't watching, you're still shaping something sacred, yourself. And slowly, something strange begins to happen. The more you align with the person you're trying to become, the more life begins to align with you. Opportunities feel less random. People show up who resonate with your new frequency. You feel less like you're chasing things and more like you're meeting them as equals. That's the shift, from striving to becoming, from wanting to preparing, from hoping to embodying. But there's another part no one tells you about: the in-between. The space where you've left the old version of yourself behind, but haven't yet fully stepped into the new one. That space can feel lonely, confusing, like you're shedding your skin without knowing what comes next. There's a strange kind of silence in the middle of transformation. It's not the silence of peace, not yet. It's the silence of no longer being who you were, while still not quite being who you're becoming. That in-between space, it can feel like a void. You've started to say no to what no longer fits, the job, the relationship, the habits. But the new hasn't fully arrived. You're untethered, suspended, sometimes even doubting if this whole path is worth it. But here's the truth I've come to understand. The in-between is not a mistake. It's not punishment. It's preparation. It's the space where your roots grow deeper, even if nothing is blooming on the surface. It's where you learn to sit with discomfort, to befriend your own silence, to let go of external proof while something internal is being rearranged. We are so conditioned to measure progress by outcomes, by promotions, milestones, recognition. But the most meaningful growth often happens when nothing visible is changing. It happens when you keep showing up differently, even when no one applauds. When you honor your boundaries, even when it costs you something. When you refuse to shrink, even when it would be easier to go back. This is where the becoming solidifies, and maybe this part feels brutal sometimes, like you're walking through fog without a map. But it's here that you develop the capacity to hold what you've been asking for. Because if it came too soon, before you had the strength, the clarity, the grounding, you might lose it. Not because you're not worthy, but because you haven't yet become the kind of person who knows what to do with it. Think of the seed underground. For weeks, maybe months, Nothing is visible. But deep down, everything is moving. It's not dead. It's not failing. It's growing. You are too. And when that next version of your life begins to bloom, because it will, you'll look back at this liminal space, not with resentment, but with reverence. You'll remember the nights you kept believing when there was no evidence. You'll remember the discipline of choosing better, quietly. You'll remember the day you stopped performing and started becoming. And maybe that's what it means to get what you want. Not to have everything, but to look around one day and realize what you have now, you are actually able to hold. Because you've become the kind of person who can. And when that moment comes, you won't feel lucky. You'll feel ready. So what does readiness look like? Readiness doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives as stillness, as a quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove itself anymore. It shows up when you stop chasing and start choosing. When you no longer beg life to give you what you want, you simply begin to live like you already belong to the version of you that would have it. It might look like waking up one day and realizing you're no longer intimidated by the things that once terrified you. Like speaking your truth, even if your voice shakes, and noticing that your voice doesn't shake as much anymore. It might be setting a boundary and not drowning in guilt after. It might be walking away, not in anger, but in clarity. These are the signs. Not that everything is perfect, but that you've stopped abandoning yourself to be chosen, understood, or loved. You've stopped negotiating with your worth. And when you get to that place, something beautiful happens. Desire shifts. You no longer want things to fill a void. You want them to expand what's already whole inside you. Your goals become less about proving, more about expressing. Your relationships stop being rescues and start being mirrors of respect, of resonance, of real connection. Jim Rohn said it best. Success is something you attract by the person you become. And becoming isn't something you rush. It's something you return to every day, with presence, with intention, with forgiveness. You might not be where you want to be yet, but you're not where you were. And that middle ground, that sacred space between, it matters. It's where the real story is written. The one you'll look back on and realize, this is where I found myself. This is where I learned that I don't need to have it all figured out to take the next step. So here's what I hope you remember. You don't get what you want by becoming someone else. You get what you want by becoming someone more honest, more integrated, more aligned with your truth. And in that alignment, life begins to meet you halfway. Maybe no one told you this before, but you're allowed to grow slowly. You're allowed to become with grace. You're allowed to change your mind, start over, and choose again. Not because you failed, but because you're learning how to live in a way that actually feels like you. And that is everything. Until next time, take care of your becoming. It's the most valuable thing you own.